92.39 BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Revenge is a dish that's served cold, and it's on the menu for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And an all-time game last night, and it delivered. It was spectacular.
The real game was Lobo v. Albany.
UConn defeated USC 80-73 to join the Final Four fray.
So you have Iowa against UConn national semifinal.
And the NFL draft is right around the corner.
The Buffalo Bills select.
I am all in on a wide receiver for the first round. And I'm all in on possibly trading up to get a wide receiver.
Mike Danger, Gene Battaglia.
Ronel Blanco tossed a no-hitter in Houston.
The New York Yankees have started the season 5-0 for the first time since 1992. The evil empire will fully return in 2024.
Is it good or bad that I already hate baseball?
Let's go, Mets.
Matt Perino.
Seth Appert with the state of the team.
Hey there, Sabres fans.
Bonjour, Jeff.
Jeff Skinner's 1000th happens tonight here at KeyBank Center as they are taking on the Capitals.
He told me he's going to play 1,000 more games. I believe that.
Thank you for listening to the show.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
And welcome in. Pull up a stool and join us. You are in the Sports Bar, Rochester's only local sports talk show. Rained out today. Try it again tomorrow, but maybe not tomorrow, but at least the weekend looking good for Dan Mason and his staff. Welcome on in. Gene Battaglia with you as Dan DeLorean in today once again here, and we have time for you to join us at 866-4326, 866-4FAN. Yes, the Red Wing game has been rained out. They have not announced a makeup date for this game, so they will try this again tomorrow, although the forecast doesn't look all that promising, and some areas may actually get snow going into Thursday. So as long as we get nice weather for the weekend and nice weather for the eclipse on Monday, which seems to be the case. Let's set you up for the show today, as on Tuesdays, it's always a great lineup because of these two gentlemen who always are gracious with their time. The Amherst are going in toward the postseason on a little bit of a roll. They are playing some good hockey, beating Syracuse on the road, beating Cleveland on the road. Those are the only two teams ahead of them in the standings, and to get road W's, that's as good a week as you can get for the Rochester Americans. Tomorrow night being the only home game against those same Cleveland Monsters. We'll talk to head coach Seth Appert coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today, about 4:25. Coming up in his normal slot on Tuesdays, that would be Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, talk a little Buffalo Bills, kind of review here what we kind of learned from last week, talk about some of these defensive tackles that the Buffalo Bills brought in, and then also kind of review, Dan, that was just a fantastic piece of audio that he provided us last week. If you missed the interview last week, we actually had Matt Perino doing it from the test track at Epcot.
I'm over at Epcot right now. I'm in line for test track. What are we thinking here? Do you want to go on this ride with me? Oh, we're going. We're going up the track here, getting revved up. I don't know if this is great radio.
No, this is fantastic. This is a journey. We're on it with you.
We're taking the first corner here.
You hear it revving up. Yeah.
This is the calm before the storm.
Yep.
We're coming around the corner here, and I'm pretty sure they shoot you out of a cannon.
Uh-oh. Oh, there he goes.
All right, we're good. We made it.
Oh.
Whew. I was worried he was going to drop his phone. And you know the deal today, that's just as bad, if maybe not worse, than losing your wallet there, because he needed to get a flight home. So Matt Perino joining us here at 3:25 as, the Bills, our focus here is what's going to happen at the end of the month. The NFL draft is now is the time we kind of focus in on that. Again, time for your calls, 866-4326, 866-4FAN. You can write to us on X. Dan would prefer you call it Twitter. The Fan Rochester is our handle. We'll get to Caitlin Clark. We'll get to Rebecca Lobo. Didn't think we'd be talking about Rebecca Lobo today, but that's where we are. But this kind of dropped on us today. And it's one of those, okay, here's the story. what does it mean? Now, the story is this, and I believe Rachel Hotmeyer from Spectrum was the first to report it. If she wasn't, my apologies, but Rachel, you get the credit here. City of Rochester issuing a request for proposal, or RFP, as some will call it, for the management of the Blue Cross Arena. The Amerks and the Nighthawks, currently operated by Rochester Arena LLC, a Pegula-related entity. All right, so the City of Rochester putting this out today to kind of review. What was the name of the company? SMG, I believe it was. For years, Jeff Calkins. You just knew Jeff Calkins. Like, man about town, Rochester's Jeff Calkins. And he ran the Blue Cross Arena like it was his own. And his company did a good job, but he didn't work for the City of Rochester. City of Rochester owns the arena. City of Rochester today still owns the arena. So what the Amerks were requesting way back when, and I'd have to look up the timeline of this when they actually took over the Nighthawks, but for various reasons, hey, let us run this arena. Look what we've done in Buffalo. And we were all kind of in favor of that because at least negotiations between the Amerks and the City of Rochester, this is going back here a little bit of history, they were always kind of uneasy, but that doesn't make us unique, okay? This is true. It's true for the Red Wings in the county, for crying out loud. Like every municipality should kind of dig in a little bit, I would think. And the City of Rochester was no different. But at the time we looked at the arena, we're like, man, the roof is leaking. It needs amenities. It needs a lot. Well, under the management here of Rochester Arena LLC, things have kind of improved, have they not? I brought my brother to a Nighthawk game. He hadn't been there since before the pandemic. And if you haven't been to the arena, you notice the lighting right away. Mm-hmm. That is like a big, big thing. You also notice, other amenities. You notice different food options. You've got Chick-fil-A in there, and you've got other things. That is what the Pegulas were doing. Now, that's the story. What does it mean? I would say not surprising, maybe surprising the timing of this, but when you look at the bigger picture, meaning go out to Buffalo and beyond, when it comes to how Mr. and Ms. Pegula run their businesses, they dissolved the umbrella company, Pegula Sports Entertainment. And that was one of those, hey, what does this mean? And that happened last year, and we were just told status quo for things here in Rochester. But why did they do that? And the speculation box was open on that, but I think it was more or less, hey, let's pay attention to the things we need to pay attention to. Do we really need a record label? Do we really need this? They really need to sell suites and build that stadium out in Buffalo for their NFL team. So what does it mean, though? Well, the Amerks and Nighthawks are kind enough to give us this statement. I'm just going to read it verbatim here, and I put this out on X earlier, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We made a decision to opt out of our license agreement with the City of Rochester for the operation and management of the Blue Cross Arena. This opt-out is specific to the operation and management of the arena, and the Rochester Americans and Nighthawks remain committed to the City of Rochester. We look forward to continued conversations with the City of Rochester in the spirit of our great partnership through our teams as both parties do their due diligence throughout the RFP process for management of the arena. Okay. Again, what does this mean? And for the record, too, nothing's going to change until April of 2025. Rochester Arena LLC, I'm told, is not dissolving, not right now at least, is, again, they're going to be here. So all next Amerks season and all next Nighthawk season, it's going to be status quo. But again, what does this mean? And I like analogies. I'm trying to draw analogies, and again, if somebody that is in business can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Dan, I don't know how old you are, but do you remember Chase Pitkin?
Yes.
Yes, Chase Pitkin. That was the hometown store. Now we have W Supply, which they're a proud sponsor of our show. Chase Pitkin was next to how many Wegmans in town? You had one in Mount Reed, and you had one in Ridge. You had them all over town. And they were always packed. And then one October day, all of a sudden, yeah, we're getting rid of them. We're going to shut them down. What? Why? How? Well, kind of the story I heard was that, yeah, they made money, but not Wegman sort of money. It was a heavy lift. And you had other competitors that were kind of expanding, your Home Depots and Lowe's, et cetera, at the time. So, yeah, do they want to stay in the space and make a little money, or do they want to focus on their main business and make more money by focusing on the main business? That's my read here, is that I think that the operation of the arena here in Rochester, there's a lot that goes into it we don't see. Like, you got to run the ticket office. You have to hire the concessions. You have to hire the janitors. You got to keep the place clean. You've got to do everything. Maintenance. Yeah, it's a lot easier when you're just kind of renting than you're actually the landlord here. So there are things. Oh, and sure, yeah, there's ancillary benefits. Like you could book a concert, but if that concert doesn't fly, then you're on the hook for it. So I would just say maybe that's one of the reasons, is that you're just trying to streamline things here a little bit. I wouldn't worry about this. That's what I'm kind of leaning up to. Would not worry about this. But it does kind of bring into focus that the Nighthawks and Amerks still have to negotiate with the city of Rochester, who Norm Jones, I think that was his name, he came on our show years ago. And there's people in the city hall there, politicians, maybe not sports fans, maybe not looking out for us, the Rochester sports fan. I'd say don't worry, because the guy who is now in charge, head honcho, I'm not talking about Mr. and Ms. Pagula, I'm talking about Pete Coelho. Pete Coelho, Aquinas grad, is the COO of the Bills, the COO of the Sabres, and he is not going to blindside his hometown. Do I know that for a fact? No, I just known the guy for 30 years, okay? He wouldn't do that. He's got family here. He brought his family back. Nobody wants to be known for that. So I wouldn't worry about any of this. I'm just curious as to how the structure actually is going to work. Like when you sell the pizza company, I'm not going to mention the pizza company, but the pizza company that does the pizza at the arena, well, they have to buy the advertising too. Well, it's not going to be up to the Amerks and Nighthawks anymore as to what pizza you buy. Maybe you get expanded options. I don't know. Maybe you get less options. There were some growing pains, I remember, right at first. And then Amerks fans would nod their head. Yeah, there were games where like, wait a second, what's going on here with the concessions? It's improved dramatically. And let's hope whoever takes over in 2 years, it'll be fine next year, but I'm curious as to where to that it goes. And maybe we get more events. That could be it too. Maybe you're bringing in an outside firm that will actually kind of bring in more concerts and those sort of things. That, it's not like we have limited amount. There's a good number that they'll put in there, but maybe you can get more. Maybe you get more dates there. And I noticed one thing too, that when the Pagulas kind of took over the arena, like if you were an outside sports league, team, anything like that, yeah, it was a little more difficult to kind of get in there. Notice how, like, not that anybody's clamoring for Razor Shark basketball or anything like that, but all those sort of things just kind of went poof, gone, goodbye. You want sports in town, come to the Amerks and Nighthawks, and I'm fine with it. But I'm just wondering, is there a possibility now? Could you get more sporting events that we might be into? I'm open to anyone's suggestion on that. So the Amerks today putting that out. As we love Rochester sports here. So again, no worries about this. Just the timing of that today coming out that they're going to step away from running the arena. And have to wonder too, will Jeff Calkins come back? He's running things now out in Buffalo. I forget the firm he's running, one of the venues out there, but would he actually come back? We shall see. Last night, women's college basketball, where I was, it felt like Monday Night Football, meaning sound was up, place was engaged, people are oohing and ahhing at Caitlin Clark hitting threes. Dan, do you know how many she hit last night?
I do. You know,
How many?
She had
hit the button.
9.
41 points.
9 times.
Yeah. Maybe Kim Mulkey should have come up with a better game plan and, took Van Lilith off of I would have thought maybe switch it up. Like you're having no hope guarding her, and it was a great game, I would say, in the first half. And then the third quarter, you realize, okay, like Iowa's gonna kind of go away with this, and LSU kind of fought around. But wow, you've got an interesting Final Four, and you've got UConn and Iowa as the 9:00 game on Friday night. We're all going to be paying attention. And then if you end up with an Iowa against undefeated South Carolina, that's the funny part. We don't even pay attention that there's a team that's now 36-0. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, like we don't talk about South Carolina women's, but they will probably beat North Carolina State. They will be playing either Iowa or UConn. I think we're all secretly hoping it's Iowa. Side note, too, this is kind of funny that good friend of the show, if you listen during fantasy football season, Andy Behrens joins us every Thursday. He's an Iowa grad. He was in Albany last night, which that was interesting because, there was a shot on the ESPN broadcast where Caitlin Clark is fired up that she made a shot. And sitting in the primo seats is Andy Behrens. And he's got a sweatshirt that has a black sweatshirt, gold goat, and just 22 on it. And he's in the background with both arms up in the air. And he's a new profile picture. I'm like, holy cow. That's pretty good timing there, Andy. So hopefully he had a good time last night. Now, we kind of foreshadowed this yesterday talking with our buddy Tim Schneider, who, by the way, will be with us tomorrow. Tim Schneider, who does a lot of things behind the scenes for us. If you listen to our Fisher broadcast, you'll hear him do the updates and during the half. And last night, hey, for fun, he went out there as a fan. Bought these tickets long ago. And voila, stroke gold, right? Seeing Iowa LSU. And do we have this, Dan? Like right at the beginning of, like if you're going to get mad at Rebecca Lobo, should you get mad at me for the first question I asked Tim Schneider?
Right now, they've got us at a hotel. It's a brand new hotel, and about a block from the arena. So we went and grabbed some food earlier, took a little lap around the arena again. We just happened to run into Caitlin Clark, of all people. So she is well secured, but they got off the bus as we were coming out of our diner, and the Iowa team looks like they are ready to go.
Yeah, and the question I asked at the beginning there, Dan, was like, what do you do in Albany?
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking that honestly. I didn't mean it like as a diss or anything. But, and look, if you listen to Sports Talk Radio, by now you've heard this clip on the broadcast last night.
So she told us they've been reaching out to me, and I've told them, just go find something to do in Albany. I'm staying in my room and just waiting for the game.
And by the way, good luck finding something to do in Albany.
Wow. Maureen Callahan thinks that's gold. I had to look up her name. Who's Maureen Callahan? She was the New York Post columnist. I don't think she writes for the Post anymore. They called Rochester grim and depressing, and we got all upset. And, she came to Rochester, and they made a good promotion out of it.
I still haven't gotten my hat or T-shirt either. Because they made a whole sponsor about a promotion where you can get a grim depressing hat and T-shirt.
I'm sure if you went over to the Revolution.
No, they're on. Wait, it's going to be a while.
Really, they're on.
Yeah.
Your level's really hot there, buddy.
Sorry about that.
So so that's So like Maureen Callahan came and made nice. Yeah, it's funny, like coming from Rebecca Lobo, because Albany is a mere hour and a half drive from Storrs, Connecticut. Like, there's nothing to do in Connecticut. It's like if you're comparing Albany to Connecticut, where Rebecca Lobo played her college ball. So that was just, it's got a lot of people upset. Would we have taken the high road, or will we take the high road? Like something like this last time? We got kudos, I think, from the national media, heck, from the world media, when the not the World Cup, I'm sorry. when the PGA Championship came to Oak Hill. Yeah, it was executed. It was a little chilly, But by and large, our Visitors Association, the whole town cleaned up nicely. Everything was mobilized. And I think we got some nice marks. And I felt pretty good about my hometown coming from that. And I don't recall anybody saying, oh, why are we coming to Rochester for this? The story was Oak Hill. And as I said this last night, this is part of the story that when Rebecca Lobo was walking into now it's MVP Arena. Before it was the Times Union Arena. I was reminded by my friend Dennis, it was once Knickerbocker Arena. It's nothing special. When we were talking to Tim yesterday, he was telling us the story of how he had the long lines just to use the bathroom. Yeah, this is an arena that went up in the 1980s, and they haven't put much money into it. And good on Siena for bidding on women's basketball, but women's basketball has kind of taken off here in the last few years. So will Albany ever get in another event like this? I don't think so. Honestly, ESPN is going to want bigger markets. The NCAA should want bigger markets. It's unfortunate. And I know we're supposed to be, hey, upstate, we band together here. And I'm sorry. It's you're going to get that event in Albany. We'll get to more of this because where our town kind of mobilized for the PGA Championship, and you had the Visitors Association, you had everybody else saying, here's where to go, here's where to eat, here's where this. There was none of that. There was no preparation. Nobody was at, to the point where they were kicking reporters out at a certain time last night. Those are the people you want to say nice things about your town. Not, hey, they kicked me out of the arena at 11 o'clock or whatever it was. So we'll get to more of that coming up. Because coming up, as I'm late, as always, when I'm doing the show by myself. I don't know what it is. Danger's off this week, by the way. He'll be back on Eclipse Day. We'll talk to Matt Perino, though. Matt Perino, who is back from his Florida vacation, and that was wonderful catching up with him. He was actually down there, not on vacation this past time. He just took a one-day little jaunt over to Epcot, but we'll get his thoughts on what he saw at the owners' meetings and what's next here for the Buffalo Bills in terms of the draft. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, joining us next here. My name is Gene Battaglia, the Dandalorian, our producer today, and this is the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I'm over at Epcot right now. I'm in line for test track. What are we thinking here? Do you want to go on this ride with me? Oh, we're going. We're going up the track here, getting revved up. I don't know if this is great radio.
No, this is fantastic. This is a journey. We're on it with you.
We're taking the first corner here.
Hey, you hear it
little
revving up?
lightning.
Yeah.
This is the calm before the storm.
Yep.
We're coming around the corner here, and I'm pretty sure they shoot you out of a cannon.
Uh-oh. Oh, there he goes.
All right, we're good. We made it.
Oh.
That is radio gold there from our good friend Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, who, Matt, you would have blocked me, never talked to me again had you lost your cell phone on that ride. I was actually kind of worried about that.
To be honest with you, I was too as it was happening, but I was already invested in the bit, so we had to just kind of get through it together. I clutched on for dear life, and we made it through. I think it was my wife's favorite segment of the year, maybe ever, on the show. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm going to nominate that. Every year, Matt, we have what we call Take of the Year, and it's not a take, but it's just some outstanding audio. The fact that you did that for the Sports Bar, and we say all the time, we live vicariously through you when you're going to the NFL owners' meetings or you're going to these Bills road trips. You're kind of your role as a reporter is to tell Bills fans what's happening, and we kind of live through you. But when you take a few hours to go to Epcot, who wouldn't want to be on test track, man? It was just perfect, and really appreciative that you did that for us last week.
Oh, anytime, man. It was. I always like making time for my guys on the Sports Bar, and no matter where I'm at, even if I'm on vacation, I like checking in, catching up with you guys.
Yeah, Danger's down there right now. What last one on Florida? What did you what else did you take when you were down at Epcot after test track? After we did our hit, did you have time for anything else?
Oh, man, a bit of a bummer at the end. Luckily, we did Guardians at the beginning, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But we had the lightning lane for Guardians of the Galaxy at 5:40, and so we thought, okay, if we can get in like 15 minutes early, I think we'll be able to actually go on the ride. Our flight was at 8 p.m., so they started boarding at 7:30, and from Epcot to the airport, I mean, if we left at like 6:15, I mean, we're going to be cutting it really close. So we were super nervous about it, and we got all the way through the line of Guardians, and me and Skursky were on the same flight, and we just decided we got to bail, and we got to go. We were worried about missing the flight, so we ran to the car, and luckily traffic wasn't bad. We got there with time to spare. We were bummed. We probably could have stayed and did the ride.
Yeah, well, if you had to stay an extra day in Florida, you would have been hearing about it from your wife, or I'm sure Skursky would have been hearing it too. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Well, we're having fun with this. We had this terrible story yesterday concerning Vontae Davis, and I'm sure we'll get more details as it kind of comes up. But, Matt, just your thoughts on that, because a player that was a first-round pick, really with the Colts, you could say he was one of the best corners in the game, at least for 1 year, but became this punchline. So your thoughts on Vontae Davis, and had he just waited until the end of the game to say, Coach, I don't have it anymore, how differently will we be kind of remembering the legacy of Vontae Davis?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, like looking back to it, first of all, it was very memorable for me because I had just started on the beat. Like that was my second like regular season game that I was covering when that happened after I came back from Vegas. And so, like, talk about just a whirlwind of just that happening and having to cover it and everything from that side of it. But even looking back, like, I watched the Trey White, LaShawn McCoy video, and at the time, like, it was super funny because they were recalling, like, the conversations and what happened there. But I don't know. Like, I think, like, sometimes we got to step back and think about, like, what's going on in people's lives and why they make the decisions that they make that might be a little bit different than, the norm or what's supposed to or expected of them. At the time, like, he made the realization he didn't want to play football anymore. And could he have done it in a little bit of a different way and maybe finish that game, or maybe even asked to come out of the game, and maybe it's never the thing that it ended up being? Sure. But it's a shame that he was a punchline, and you hope for the best. It's such a sad story whenever anybody loses their life at 35 years of age. I only had like 2 or 3 conversations with him over the course of training camp and the preseason, but he was always a guy that seemed like he was full of life. And I think that was part of what was so surprising. And he was a vet. Like, guys in the room were like looking to him. That was still year 2 Trey White. Like, that he was still developing as a young player. And I think getting Vontae Davis in that room was really exciting for a lot of people. So, yeah, just super sad. Rest in peace, man.
Yeah, my memory here of that camp was, as if you remember where we used to set up, we had the tent by the media, and we sat down with Vontae Davis. I'm like, wow, this is Vontae Davis. Like, I remember. And he could have been nicer, and he lit up talking about the vacations he was on and looking forward to going on more vacations with his wife. And Danger and I looked at each other and like, okay, this is a player that right now, like whatever happens this year, this is it. He is and you think the future is just so bright, and that's only 6 years ago. And it brings us to the story of yesterday, and it just I don't know. It sounds cliche, but man, when you have a chance to go live your life, go do it, man, because you just never know what is around the corner. And again, we don't know. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest here. Matt, now that, and again, when we talked to you last week, your portion of covering the NFL owners' meetings had concluded. Now that we look back, your biggest takeaways from talking to Brandon Beane, you talked to Sean McDermott, were there any tells at all when it comes to the draft? What were your biggest takeaways from going down to Florida last week?
I think like the defensive line to me is where I'm really focusing a lot of my attention right now, because I just feel like it's this position group that there's still a lot of question marks about, even with the additions of Deshaun Williams and Austin Johnson. Those are guys that for me on the interior, they don't move the needle a ton. I've come around a little bit more on Austin Johnson as somebody that could be a part of their rotation. But I think in the draft, with 11 draft picks, like, they're going to have to really consider taking a bunch of defensive linemen, not only like defensive tackles, but edge rushers too. And I think that they're still doing work. I think that you'll see in the second, the third, the fourth wave of free agency, they might still be an active participant. And remember, they're going to get a big heap of money after June 1st when Trey White officially comes off the books. And that'll be helpful, especially if there's a late cap casualty or somebody that's hanging out there waiting for a little bit more money. Unfortunately for the Bills, defensive tackle has been pretty much picked through. But that was one of my big takeaways, is just that I don't know how satisfied either of them are in where things stand on the defensive line right now. I think you have some star power in Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, to a lesser degree Greg Rousseau, but there's a big question mark with Von Miller. And so how much is a priority for them to go out and get a high-end player in the draft at maybe the edge rusher position to mitigate for the possibility that Von Miller isn't the guy that he was 2 years ago? You're going to need somebody to be a starter, depending on what happens with free agency over the next couple of weeks and months. But that, to me, is the biggest takeaway, is just that area of the defense, which I think that both of those guys, Beane and McDermott, think is the most important part of the defense. It's just not set.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of the camp storylines is going to be, all right, you're going to have 2 new safeties. At least we assume that Micah Hyde, and we don't know officially yet, but if it ends up being Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards, can you see that? Because, Matt, I also see a scenario that we have to, like, I'm telling Bills fans that are gung-ho on wide receiver, like, hey, brace for this. If Cooper DeJean is on the board at 28, that might be a guy they would consider.
I think so too, but I don't know. I'd have to learn more about how the Bills view him, and that would be a very interesting selection, because I don't know about the value of safety in the first round. I'm very hesitant. Now, he falls into a different bucket because there's some that believe he's going to be a top end cornerback in the league, and I think if you can get arguably the top cornerback or somebody that's at least within the conversation, there's real value there at 28. And Ryan and I were talking about this on Shot last night. Things are good right now. I mean, you have Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford locked in as your starters, and then Kyrie Elam is your top guy off the bench. But what's on the books past this upcoming season? Rasul Douglas is slated to be a free agent. So, I mean, they're going to have to really think about, restocking the cupboards, if you will, at cornerback. And the best way to do that is by drafting a high-end corner that you can develop that can kind of learn behind those two guys that have been in this scheme. There's going to be a little bit of a scheme adjustment, I would imagine, with John Butler out and Jamil Adai in at cornerbacks. Bobby Babich, who has a history in the DB's room when he was the safeties coach and basically learned under John Butler. So I still think that there will be that flavor in the secondary room. And then Joe Dana is the safeties coach. He was there last year as well. But who they tab to go after at safety in this draft, and if it ends up being DeJean, and if that's where they maybe view him being the best version of himself, playing at all three levels. I know that he's really good around the line of scrimmage as well. He's a good tackler, which Sean McDermott loves that. It's going to be interesting to see how they view all these guys, and then what safety they end up landing on. I've heard really good arguments for Tyler Nubin, the kid from Georgia, Bullard, and Cameron Kitchens from Miami, but that's not from the Bills side of things. So how do they view these guys, and where can they get these guys in the draft?
Yeah, Matt, too, and we've had a week to kind of digest this. The idea that we already knew that they were going to kind of remold the special teams, but now it's got to be completely different with the new rule change. So the idea that kickoffs are going to be a thing, and the idea that you're going to need guys that can block and tackle, right up front, but also return. Do they have somebody on the team right now that could be that game-breaking returner? Because Nyheim Hines is in here. To my knowledge, Deontay Hardy's still out there, but is there a player that right now on the roster could be that guy?
I wouldn't be surprised if they looked for that in the draft. There's a couple of interesting, crossovers that they can kind of utilize in the kicking game, wide receivers, defensive backs. And maybe if they land at something like that, or they wait and they target somebody in free agency. I mean, you mentioned Deontay Hardy still being out there. If he doesn't find a market, he's somebody that was really good in the return game for them a season ago. I think he's going to want a little bit more of an opportunity as a receiver, and those opportunities are pretty much gone now in this offense. If you think about the fact they're probably going to draft somebody within the first 60, at worst 90 picks at wide receiver. I don't know if Hardy would sign up to just come back strictly to be the punt returner, but it'll depend on his market. But I think you can get those guys. I think you can get those guys on day 3, even in the draft, like a specialist that you want to bring in. Maybe there's a running back in the draft that, it can be the Nyheim Hines kind of mold that you can get in here on a rookie contract and put him in the depth role in that room as well. I think Brandon Beane will have a plan for it, and maybe there's somebody even on the roster. I'd have to go back and actually look if KJ Hamler, I think he did return some kicks for Denver early in his career, or maybe if not in Denver, he did in college. So he could be maybe be in the mix as well. But they'll definitely address that. They won't leave any potential hole on special teams, even though they have to kind of pivot to giving those jobs to people that are going to probably be a lot younger and make a lot less money.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up KJ Hamler. It's like one of those names like, oh my gosh, I forgot they brought him in last year when he wasn't healthy, but now he will be, assuming. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast, our guest. Matt, I think back to our conversation last week, and I asked you a question about Tre'Davious White, because at this very time last week, he, to our knowledge, was still sitting out there and brought up the fact that, hey, could you see a scenario where the Buffalo Bills bring him back? You're like, yeah, maybe, but I could see more likely, him going somewhere for 1 year and then maybe coming back. Matt, did you know something last week? Because after, half hour after we got done, the move to the Rams was announced.
Not specifically. I mean, just, you talk to people around the league and you kind of get a sense of where things are trending. I didn't have any sources on it or anything like that. But, I think the 1-year deal for a guy coming off of an injury like that was always kind of what I thought he would get. And I thought he got actually a little bit more money than I expected him to get because he has only played 10 games over the last 3 seasons. And for that, you wonder how much that's going to affect the bank account. But he got a really nice, healthy deal. I think he lands with a team that's sneaky positioned to really have a good season. I mean, if Matthew Stafford can stay healthy, and what they have now at receiver with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, that's a really fun offense and a defense that I think has a lot more pieces all of a sudden. Obviously, they lost a big piece in Aaron Donald, but on the back end, some fun young players. And now you throw Tre'Davious White into the mix. It's a nice 1-year stop for him, and we'll see what he can do with it.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, is we're kind of now full-on draft mode. Do you have any appearances? What's coming up here, not only in the Shout podcast, but in the whole empire of Perino and Talbot?
Yeah, so tomorrow night, great transition there, Gino.
Yeah.
We have Shout Live. For the first time ever, we're coming to you from 29's Kitchen Bar, which is the restaurant inside the Dome on Worley Drive in Williamsville area, right off of Transit Road there. You'll see the big dome. Put in the address on Worley Drive. And we're having John Butler, former Buffalo Bills defensive backs coach. He's going to be our special guest to kind of take a look back, at his time in Buffalo, the decision on both sides to move on, and then he'll help us break down what this Bills team looks like moving into next season. And I'm sure some other fun conversations will be had over the course of that conversation.
Boy, he's an interesting get. Did he land anywhere, Matt, or is he still what's John Butler's status right now?
No, he's still kind of hanging out there. The tough part for him was at the time when they made that decision to mutually part ways. I feel like a lot of teams were already securing coaches who were also securing, other coaches on their staff. So I think, you're John Butler. You've had all this success. You want to be a defensive coordinator. You're not going to just take any old job. I think you want to go to a place where you can continue to have some success, where you like the landing spot. And so we'll ask him about it tomorrow. But I think it's more just about, being late in the game, getting thrown back into the mix, and maybe nothing really materialized that he really was excited about. Maybe he'll take a year to where, and he reached out to us actually about the show appearance. So who knows? Maybe he wants to dabble in some media this upcoming season.
Maybe he just wants to get some chow there too while you're out there like everybody else.
That's a smart decision.
Yeah, like Matt, I'm sure that, and I'll be listening for this too, and I'm sure you're going to ask him the question about Kaiir Elam, because when we're kind of going in about players that, could have a ceiling, but it just hasn't gone wrong, and really we don't know the reasons why. That's why Kaiir Elam is such an interesting player. Can he pull it together? And I'm just going to be so curious what John Butler's going to have to say about Kaiir Elam and his development under his watch.
Oh, no, definitely. I definitely want to ask him about Kaiir, and just overall, for a team that didn't ever invest a day one pick at that position over, 5 straight seasons after they drafted Tre'Davious White, what was his vantage point of the Kaiir Elam pick, how he kind of came into the building? Because, from the outside looking in, it felt like he would have been a coach's dream. So obviously it didn't go the way that a lot of people expected or probably wanted. And so getting a little insight into that will be interesting to see how much he'll open the door into that.
Yeah, and I don't know he would ever say anything like this, but have you heard this from Bills fans? And is there any truth to this, or is there a level of truth? The idea in that draft that Kaiir Elam wasn't the target. It was actually McDuffie who went to Kansas City. Is there any truth to that?
No, I think the best indicator that there's some truth to that was the Bills embedded video that came out. I think it was the embedded video where Brandon Beane and I think somebody else had a reaction when the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to get that pick. I can't remember if it was an embedded video. There was some clip that went kind of viral about that. And I had actually heard that the Bills were super high on Trent McDuffie, so much so that I mocked them to the Bills in, I think, my final mock draft. And it was just one of those things, like, it's the worst-case scenario, right? And the one that they face every year because the Chiefs keep beating them, keep picking after them, and there's that fear of, like, the Chiefs coming up and taking a guy that will fit into what they need, because I think both these teams need weapons offensively and they need blockers. And this is a draft where, we talked about defensive line maybe, and maybe even safety corner, but what about the Bills maybe going a little bit off the beaten path and going interior offensive line after losing Mitch Morse? I know that there's a lot of excitement about Connor McGovern and David Edwards as your new center-left guard combo, but, you got to start thinking about the future too. And if you can get a high-end, top of the draft class center. A lot of people are talking about Jackson Powers Johnson, but the kid Barton from Duke, he's rising up draft boards from everything that I've heard in the media space. And a lot of times when that happens, it's because media evaluators are hearing things from NFL evaluators that maybe the media world isn't high enough on a player. So I think his name is Graham Barton, if I'm saying the name right. I don't have it in front of me, but that's a name to watch too. And if the Bills can land their center of the future in this draft at 28, you gotta find starters, like not only for this season but the next couple of seasons on rookie contracts. That to me is the biggest point of emphasis as you enter the end of the month's draft.
Yeah, Graham Barton, all ACC last 2 years, first team. Just a really good prospect. Matt Perino, always great to kind of catch up with you. And by the way, we have to plan something when camp comes into Rochester. I know or maybe you're on to last year. I felt really bad because it was on a Monday night. Could not meet up with you, but hopefully one of these meetups, so we could do something here in the Flower City.
Yeah, sir. So right now, we have a couple things in motion, with so much action on the Rochester front that we might end up doing 2 live shows during training camp. So stay tuned for that. We're still working through that, and maybe me and you can rap about that offline.
Nice. Matt, appreciate your time, buddy. Have a good weekend, and thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, kind of filling us in. Yeah, that was interesting. The idea that, and this is the fear, I'm sure. Where the Bills, hey, we are ready to compete. We see these 2-3 players, and only one is sitting on the board. And it worked out last year because, you got Dalton Kincaid, and you moved up and you jammed Dallas. Not that Dallas is this team in your path, but how different would the world have been had you gotten McDuffie instead of Kyer Elam? The Chiefs win the Super Bowl, because they have Patrick Mahomes. I get that. But they had not one but 2 lockdown corners last year. L'Jarius Sneed, he's gone now. You can't pay the 2. I get that. But McDuffie has he's been great, too, for that team. So just open your mind to the possibilities. And I'm glad Matt brought up offensive line because I've read that, too. There will be guys that could have first-round grades if the Bills stay at 28. But the more you see, you think about it, and you just go by the track record of Brandon Beane. He, in his time in Buffalo, has stood pat just once. That was the Ed Oliver trade. Now, you could say the Stephon Diggs trade, but I'm talking about when you actually made a selection in the first round. He's always moved up. And with 11 picks, where I'm thinking, hey, you got to replenish, take more shots there. I'd rather trade down and get more candidates here and, kind of have more competition because I do think that you're thin in many areas on this team. Not that every team has these problems, but that would be one good way. But if they see a player that can really make an impact, all right, so keep an eye. That's what makes the draft so much fun. We're going to have a lot of draft coverage coming up here in the month of April. Coming up, I'll drink to that in the sports bar as I'll have more thoughts on Albany. And some of this was actually self-inflicted on Albany. Yes, we played the Rebecca Lobo Cup, but just basic things that they missed along the way. And I'll explain that, hey, that was not their best foot forward, and maybe we can learn here as a community. I think we always kind of put on a good show when we invite the world in. So we'll kind of discuss that a little bit. And there is a big name in sports broadcasting that is retiring. And I will have thoughts. No, it's not Al Michaels. And it's I don't hear from Musburger as much anymore though, but we'll tell you who that is and have some thoughts on that. We have time for your calls on the other side too. Our phone number 866-4FAN 866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia, the Dandalorian, our producer today. Danger is off, and this is the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Revenge is a dish best served cold, and it's on the menu for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And an all-time game last night, and it delivered. It was spectacular.
The real game was Lobo v. Albany.
UConn defeated USC 80-73 to join the Final Four fray.
So you have Iowa against UConn national semifinal.
And the NFL draft is right around the corner.
The Buffalo Bills select.
I am all in on a wide receiver for the first round. And I'm all in on possibly trading up to get a wide receiver.
Mike Danger, Gene Battaglia.
Ronel Blanco tossed a no-hitter in Houston.
The New York Yankees have started the season 5-0 for the first time since 1992. The evil empire will fully return in 2024.
Is it good or bad that I already hate baseball?
Let's go, Mets.
Matt Perino. Seth Appert with the state of the team.
Hey there, Sabres fans.
Bonjour, Jeff.
Jeff Skinner's 1,000th happens tonight here at KeyBank Center as they are taking on the Capitals.
He told me he's going to play 1,000 more games. I believe that.
Thank you for listening to the show. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We'll talk to Amherst head coach Seth Appert as the team is rolling over the last week. Road win at Syracuse, road win at Cleveland. As for the Amherst, only 7 games left. We'll talk to the head coach there as the Amherst looking to lock down a decent playoff spot. Still, nothing is clinched for anybody here in the North Division. That's how tight it is. So cannot rest on their laurels, and you certainly know Seth Appert would not allow that. So we'll talk to him coming up at the bottom of the hour. Mike Danger down in Florida this week. Dan DeLorean is good enough to be by here today as he's waving to the camera. You can watch us on YouTube and Twitch, certainly. You can listen to us in the free-to-download Odyssey app. In fact, if you are kind of traveling on the thruway or wherever, that's the easiest way, just to kind of put it in your car, listen through that way, and it comes in nice and clear. And, of course, 95.7 FM and AM 950. I'm not going to be satisfied until we have 10 platforms for this one show, Dan.
You don't want just 9?
No. Well,
9 times.
Actually, I think I would be satisfied with 9.
9 times.
Like, we got to get on that. It's like a TV station come in and simulcast and do everything like they've done with some other shows here. That was fun last night, was it not? Were you not entertained watching Iowa and LSU? That's what you want in any. It wasn't even a championship game, but it was an important game, certainly, the game to go to the Final Four. And good on the selection committee for giving the people what they want. Give us that rematch, what we want. And I think Rome had a good point today. For anybody that is kind of waving their finger at LSU, just like, okay, just let them be, all right? Like, some of it they brought on themselves, certainly. When you're waving the ring finger there, okay, well, nobody's going to forget that. And that's really what kind of helped build Angel Reese's brand. But to me, it wasn't anything about being the villain last night. Freaking guard Caitlin Clark, and I don't know if anybody can, but the fact that Haley Van Lith was on her the entire game pretty much. Actually, it was like 80%, but it just seemed like the entire game. And Kim Mulkey didn't do anything to switch it up or do anything to be a little more physical. Caitlin Clark on full display last night. Caitlin Clark is an assassin. She really is. She is one of those rare athletes that drop everything, I'm going to watch. And the idea that you're going to get her against UConn, like the program that has won the most titles of all time. Could you have written a tougher path if Iowa actually does this? First of all, the team that won last year with the coach that does take on the villain role in Kim Mulkey, to the team that has won the most championships of all time, Gino Auriemma and UConn, and they have Paige Bruckers, and they're looking good too. And then you get through all that, then have to go against the team that by that point would be 37-0. Like I would assume South Carolina's not going to get upset. Like the team that we really don't talk about. It seems crazy that an undefeated team who just kind of lying in the weeds, but that's how the immediate attention has gone. That was certainly great television last night, and it was great for the sport. And we're not talking about the genders, we're not talking about anything. When you see greatness, that's it. And we root for greatness. We like Tiger Woods, at least people my generation. Like, that's our guy. He was great. And yes, he had flaws. We're fully aware of them. And I want to see Tiger once again get on the course, and maybe he'll get a win someday. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath, but that's why we like Jordan Or depending on you like LeBron today, you like greatness. And Caitlin Clark is at that level. I don't know if you caught what Mulkey said to her after, like, I'm glad you're leaving, as they're going through the handshake line. It was tongue-in-cheek, though, but it does bring up the point that Clark could have come back for year 5. She could have. And she opted, no, my time is going, so Indiana wins the lottery, not the WNBA lottery, like the lottery, the fact that, oh my gosh, can you imagine being that owner and now all of a sudden you're going to be gifted with this player? So, yeah, we'll be paying attention to that. And certainly if Iowa gets to the final, we'll be watching on Sunday too. Now, there's this other parallel storyline. One that, I'm not one to say I'm right or I can forecast things, but when I do, I like saying I'm right. Is that okay, Dan?
Yeah, we'll allow it.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to allow it. I can't get all upset at Rebecca Lobo waving my finger because, hey, we're in upstate city too here in Rochester. How dare anybody say anything negative about Albany? First of all, let's play if you haven't heard this yet, okay, it's Ryan Rucco, I think, on play-by-play, and he's telling the story of just Caitlin Clark talking to her brother, just saying, go out and find something to do here on a day off.
Well, she told us they've been reaching out to me, and I've told them, just go find something to do in Albany. I'm staying in my room and just waiting for the game.
And by the way, good luck finding something to do in Albany.
Whoa. Wow. Where did that come from? Now, after this, Rebecca Lobo, normally would say, hey, I'm sorry, I was going for the joke. Nothing, no ill harm. No, she goes to hey, no shade was intended. I'm not, okay, don't gaslight us there, Becky, all right? Honestly, yeah, you were throwing shade, and it's okay. Just own it. Own it. And you know why I say it's okay? Because listen to my first question yesterday, our guest, and he's not even a guest, he's one of our own, Tim Schneider. We didn't send him out there. We don't have this worldly budget to send reporters out there. I wish we did. Maybe someday we do here at the Fan Rochester. But Tim Schneider, as a fan, he and his dad and a couple buddies figured out, hey, the regionals are going to be in Albany. Why don't we buy tickets? Great. They buy tickets a year in advance. Ha! Woo, ding, 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 ding. You won the lottery there, buddy, because Iowa LSU was there. So we talked to Tim, who was out in Albany, and listen to my first question to Tim yesterday. Tim, my first question is, what do you do on Albany during your downtime? What is the scene there? Honestly, I'd never been around Albany.
Right now, they've got us at a hotel. It's a brand new hotel in about a block from the arena. So we went and grabbed some food earlier, took a little lap around the arena again. We just happened to run into Caitlin Clark, of all people, so she is well secured. But they got off the bus as we were coming out of our diner, and the Iowa team looks like they are ready to go.
And they were.
Yeah. But my question to Tim, I left the door open to say, because I said that honestly. Everybody, people that are listening to the show, I know Syracuse transplants. I know there's Buffalo transplants in Rochester. There are people that come here from various parts. And I'm sure there's some Albany transplants too. And if I said, hey, what do you do in Buffalo? Oh my gosh, you have the Albright Knox, you have certainly Chippewa. Hey, what do you do in Syracuse? Hey, you know what? The Armory is like a really fun spot to go to. And if you want to go outside the city, go over to Skinny Alley. Yeah. What do you do in Albany? I asked that question yesterday. Yeah. I don't know, which is ironic because Albany takes all of our money and they can't promote themselves. You would think they would want to say, hey, we're not just the people that take your money. We are the people that have X, Y, Z. And from everything I kind of learned and read, they have restaurants and museums. Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, what would we say here in Rochester? I would say that the Strong Museum. Okay, if you have kids, that draws in a lot of people. I would say the George Eastman House is fascinating. The Museum and Science Center, we're hearing a lot about with the eclipse. There are plenty of things to do in our front end. Oh, by the way, we have a brewery that overlooks a waterfall. I mean, why do we build the expressway over the waterfall? I don't know. That's our town. We should, be able to say, boom, 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 boom. This is what our town is. Come on in. We've all entertained here. And I was just asking the question, and Tim didn't know. And Tim, what did you do in Albany? Well, we went to a diner. That's the part I kind of learned from that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of it. What Rebecca Lobo did last night, people are just pretty gosh darn upset about. And I'm just kind of pointing out that maybe, just maybe, that's a you problem too. You got to learn how to promote yourself. And I would draw the analogy to when we hosted the PGA Championship. And I'm from here, but when you're going through the media, they don't know that. So, they're treating everybody like, hey, welcome to Rochester. Here's where you go to dinner. Here's what, like, there are people, volunteers here that were ready. And I got this goodie bag, all this stuff. I bring it home. I'm like, hey, hon, look at all these gifts here from all these Rochester businesses. And look, I'm not saying they should give free stuff, but you should have people there that are ready to explain what to do while you're in town, because you're inviting the world in. That's part of this. Now, that's not the only part of the story, too. When you have reporters coming in from Iowa, from South Carolina, from LSU, you should be actually kind of catering to them a little bit. But apparently last night, reporters were kicked out of the media room. Like there was some sort of curfew. Like, wait a second. No, everybody leave. Like at 11 o'clock. Are you kidding me? I don't know if that was the exact time. This is from, there are plenty of tweets about this. This is from reporter Mark Woodley. Been covering NCAA tournaments for over 2 decades now and have never been treated as poorly as we were at this site. Albany. Felt like I was in Shawshank. Shocked we didn't have designated windows to use the bathroom. Okay. I don't know that to be true, Mark, because I've never seen Shawshank. Can you give me another example there? I get where he's going with. That's one tweet that was out there last night that people were just like, reporters are like, what the heck there? Like, let people do their job. That's the window there. So where the mayor's firing back at Rebecca Lobo, the Visitor Association, Rebecca Lobo, hey, there are, I don't want to call reporters influencers, but you want them to leave with a positive image of your city. I thought we represented ourselves well here in Rochester when the PGA came to town. And the next time we have an event like that, I'm pretty sure we will too, because we have volunteers and we realize that, yeah, we have this habit of kind of bad-mouthing ourselves, whether that's the Fast Ferry or the Clips or whatever, and we shouldn't do that, certainly. But we take great pride in our town. When somebody comes in, when I have a buddy come in that maybe, hey, Gene, I'm in town. Oh, great. Let's go over to the brew house. Let's go over here. Let's go to a Wings game. Like, I like to show people around town. And they didn't seem equipped to that, at least from these tweets there. So that's my thought on that. We have Seth Apper coming up here in a little bit. We told you there's an announcer that's retiring, Vern Lundquist. Masters coming up. Want to take a guess how many Masters this is for Vern Lundquist, Dan?
35.
Close. 40.
Okay.
40, and that's a good round number. 40 Masters for Vern Lundquist. He's 83 years old. Bob Uecker is still going to call the occasional Milwaukee Brewers game. He's 90. Al Michaels, right or wrong, still going. There are numerous other examples of sportscasters still going strong. Well past, what is the normal retirement age? 67,
yeah,
67,
there, yeah.
70. Like if I get to like that age and like, okay, I'm on overtime by that point. Couple thoughts on this. First, like, why do you see this in this profession? Well, number one, it's fun. You're blessed.
Yeah.
If you're having fun doing what you're doing, keep going. Also, these men get to keep their gig because their voices are like comfort food. They really are. Like hearing Vern Lundquist on 16.
Yeah.
You know instantly it's kind of an event when you hear Vern Lundquist. In summertime, like it's your favorite baseball announcer. If you're a Red Sox fan, like I remember going out to Cape Cod and you would hear Joe Castiglione. He's still doing this. I had to look up how old he is. 76. He's not slowing down. And then we have a guy like this in Rochester, too, Don Stevens, and I believe he's going to be 76. And I am on record, as long as Don wants to do this, you let Don do it. It's good that they have Andrew doing it, and if Don doesn't want to go to, I don't know, Belleville or any place like that, he's earned that right. But if there's a big game in the Blue Cross Arena and having the tones of Don Stevens, gentlemen, keep going, because I think ageism in our town is, not in our town, in our country, it's a real thing. And, just kind of call it out for what it is.
You're forgetting one, Gino.
Wow.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Well, I thought you were going to go with Musburger.
Okay, I mean, I could do that.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
You're forgetting John Sterling.
John Sterling, how old?
Is he in his 90s?
He's 85.
He's 85, okay.
85.
Okay.
And he was doing the games in Houston. He's in Arizona. We've had him on the show before. Like, he's just a gentleman. Susan Wallman, 77.
Okay.
It's like, yeah. It's like you worked to that your whole life to get into that position, and you're not ready.
Don't let it go.
Don't let it go. Don't let it go. And if you still can do it, heck, go for it. We got to get to Seth Appert, Rochester Americans. The Amerks are playing well, and this is the time of year you want to play well. It is the month of April, so we'll talk to Seth Appert, head coach of the Rochester Americans. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. You can write to us on X, our handle, The Fan Rochester. My name is Gene Battaglia. Danger's out today. The Dandalorian, our producer, here on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Away and breakaway opportunity for Davies. Moving up the left wing. Hit it over the line, pulls it in, shoots, scores! Davies steals it away, goes the length of the ice, puts it inside the left post. Davies seals the deal as the Embers come away with the overtime victory. 21 seconds into OT.
Yeah. It's that time of year, month of April, where we are on the edge of the seat with Don Stevens calling. That was a fun one on Saturday as we welcome in the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Seth Appert. And Seth, that's a great week for your team. Only 2 games, but you take care of business, winning at Syracuse. And the way you won at Cleveland, let's start kind of backwards here with the Cleveland win there. What did that say about your team down by 2 that you found a way there?
Yeah, I've liked the resilience of our group here over the last 20 games or so. It's something that you're building towards all year, but you have to earn that. You have to go through adversity and not quit on each other and stay the course. And if you do that, you can build a real inner belief and a resilience that you're not going to let each other down and you're going to keep fighting. It was interesting, that game. We played very good on Saturday in Cleveland and probably deserved to be up after the second period. We weren't. And then they scored a couple quick ones on their first 2 shots, I think, in the third. And it would have been easy to go away at that point. Big crowd, 15,000 people there. Their goalie was playing excellent. And so for us to respond that way was great to see.
Yeah, and one of the guys that scored for you in this game, Kulik, who is now, again, back-to-back years, 20 goals here for your team, Seth. And, we're going to enjoy him someday when he's playing at the next level. But what has it been about his game that you like here so far this year?
What I really like is that he is playing 200-foot hockey right now. He has become a very strong defensive center. It's not easy to play center in this league. It's certainly not easy at 19. He gets the hard assignments now. He's playing against the other team's top couple lines, against a better defenseman. He's taking D-zone faceoffs. So his overall growth of his game, same with Roseanne, is light years ahead of where they were last year. Last year we were trying to put them in offensively advantaged situations to take advantage of their skill. This year they need to drive our winning and our competitiveness, and they're both doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, as Seth Appert, our guest here, the Amherst home tomorrow night against those same Cleveland Monsters. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The win over Syracuse, since we last talked about Seth, that had an unusual beginning there where Michael Hauser gets hurt in the opening minute. I've seen the video. What exactly happened on that play?
Yeah, that was a weird play because you have Tokarski, who was coming off of a slight injury the week or so before against Hartford. Hauser played 2 excellent games on the weekend. So as Tokarski's coming back from the injury, we're go with Hauser again since he looks so sharp. Give Ticker a few more days to kind of get his feet under him. And then 30 seconds in, Hauser turned a puck over behind the net, and he got tangled up with their player. It was not a dirty play. It wasn't malicious at all. He just got tangled up with them, and he fell backwards over him, and then, unfortunately, hurt himself in the process. And, he's probably out 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, which, all right, I'm doing the math here. That's the rest of the regular season. So I'm like, how much are we leaning on Dustin Tokarski here, the rest of the way, Coach?
Well, first of all, credit to him. Coming to relief is always hard. Coming to relief 30 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a challenge. And he was fabulous that night, pitching a shutout against a really good Syracuse team. We played real good team defense that night, but he was really good. And obviously he got us another win on Saturday in Cleveland. So, we'll ride him. At some point, Levi will find his way back here. We'll see when that is. Those are decisions above my pay grade. But at some point, Levi will end up back in Rochester. But for now, we'll ride Ticker, and we feel good about it.
We're talking to Seth Appert, head coach of the Rochester Americans, as the team is home tomorrow night. Seth, gosh, looking at that Syracuse win, you look at the Cleveland win, and all along you have been saying, how do you keep the guys focused here? Because I would think that it's real tempting to think, you know what, we can climb the standings here, get the second, maybe get the first.
Yeah, you know what I said to him? For the last 21 games, we started this kind of during that 7 games in 11 days where we treated it like a best of 7. And I said to the guys that's how tight the standings are. We need to have a playoff mindset from here on out. But we need to not worry about the standings. We just need to worry about the next game. And in the playoffs, you just got to focus and prepare and work to try to win the next game. And then you do that, and then you just move on to the next game. And so that has been the mindset the whole way through. And I said to them before we went to Cleveland, and I reminded them today, we haven't been worried about the standings for the last 21 games, and we're playing really good hockey. Let's not start worrying about it now that the standings look a little better. So, because I think as soon as you start worrying about things out of your control, scoreboard watching, things like that, you stop taking care of things within your control. So we control how good we practice today. We had a great practice. We control how we prepare to give ourselves a chance to win tomorrow. And that's all I want our guys thinking about.
Seth, February, it was bonkers. It was almost criminal, kind of tongue-in-cheek there. But, you had, 10 games, 14 days? I forget. It was just felt like a game every day practically for your team. The fact that you had some rest here, just the one game on Saturday and, a game on Wednesday. And, sure, you got to go on the road this weekend. But how much of that was a factor that these guys had a few extra hours here when you hit the ice last week?
Yeah, I think that's it's something that I think we have done a good job of collectively over the last 3 years is managed. When it's time to practice, we practice when we've practiced very well. I give our guys a ton of credit. This year especially, our practices have been excellent. And I'm a big believer as a coach in not wasting our players' time. Everything we do in practice has a purpose, either a purpose for our team or for their individual skill development or decision-making. And same with off-ice. So when you have some time, and this is where you lean on the captains. You lean on Mersch and Prow and Murray and Byro. What do you think here, guys? Should this be an off day if we only have 2 games this week? Should this be a practice day? Maybe we should only lift this day. Do we practice in the morning, then travel to Providence, or should we travel and practice in Providence? And all of those things, I trust our captains so much that I lean on them, and I pick their brains a lot on these types of decisions to make sure that we're putting our guys in the best position to be successful.
Yeah, after all these divisional opponents, you have your last extended road trip of the regular season coming up this weekend. As you brought it up, where you get Providence, and then Sunday afternoon you get Bridgeport, a team you haven't seen since opening night. Seth, you're not even looking really at the opening night tape, or are you at this point?
No, I won't even look at that. Obviously, right now my focus is on Cleveland tomorrow, but yeah, we have Providence, who's an excellent team, Saturday. Fun building, fun place to play. They get good crowds on the weekend, so that'll be a good challenge. And then Bridgeport, is a different challenge. They're not having as good of a year. It's not as good of a crowd. It's more of an empty building, but they have a lot of college guys that they've just been signing and bringing in, so that's dangerous. Less than a full crowd, a team with nothing to lose, with a bunch of guys playing for contracts. That's also presents different challenges. So certainly not going to look at a lot of tape from early October, but we'll look at more recent tape in terms of our preparation for those 2 teams.
Tomorrow night, Cleveland the opponent, and for fans going out, you can do a little meet and greet, as I understand. The Giante brothers, we've had Brian Gianta before, but I don't think both of them have been at the same time. Brian and Steven, those are that Gianta name. That's Rochester hockey royalty in our town. Seth, what have you met Brian and Steven yet?
Yeah, I have. I've met both. Steven is a pro scout for Tampa Bay. So I might not, might try to block him from being in the building. And then Brian, I had not met Brian until this year. Frankie Mathot and Brian had me come over and talk to the Junior Amerks North American League team just about development and how to take care of things the right way and how to go about your business on a daily basis. Kind of relate some of the experiences we've had with developing players and my time at the national program in terms of what those players should be focusing on. And so I appreciated that they invited me over and had really enjoyed speaking with Brian that day. And obviously remember coaching against him when I was at Denver and he was at Boston College, and he was just a tremendous player, obviously.
Yeah, and Boston College, still BU. All those familiar names back in the Frozen Fours out there.
It's a blue blood Frozen Four. It really is. BC, BU, Michigan, and Denver. Obviously, I'm a Pio. I'm a Denver Pioneer at heart. Having spent a decade there and still friends with the head coach, and so I'll be rooting for the Pioneers. But certainly BC, BU, and Michigan. I mean that you're talking about 4 teams with there's probably 25 to 30 future NHL players on those teams. I mean, it's going to be really elite talent level in the Frozen Four this year.
Yeah, we watched the BU RIT game, Seth. It's like, okay, RIT played really well, and you're playing a team like that, your margin for error, there is no margin for error, actually.
There isn't. I mean, there's a guy like Celebrini and others. When RIT played really good in that game, it gave themselves a very good chance. But you make a couple mistakes against teams like that, it ends up in the back of your net really quick.
Seth, last one, because certainly you were up with the Sabres for a couple games this year. Should be a fun night at KeyBank tonight. 1,000 career games now for Jeff Skinner. What are your thoughts on Skinner and your dealings with him over the years and this accomplishment to get to 1,000?
Well, 1,000 games is insane. I mean, that's crazy amount of games. So that's incredibly impressive. Obviously, he scored tons of goals as well. I've really enjoyed my time with Jeff. He's got great energy about him. He loves the game. He has fun at practice. He's out there. He plays with a lot of passion. He wears his heart in his sleeve. So my interactions with Jeff have been nothing but positive, and I only have good things to say about him.
Seth Appert, Rochester Americans, home against Cleveland tomorrow night. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call. Seth, really appreciate your time today. Go get him this week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Seth Appert, always gracious with his time here in the sports bar. As if the Amherst can navigate this with Dustin Tokarski, that's the issue I see. And I wish... Send Devin Levi back now? Could they do that? No.
Well, Buffalo's still kind of
until what? Right.
Yeah.
Right. So do we hate watch the Sabres and say, come on, send us back? I mean, are we being bad Rochester sport fans?
No, I think if you're a Sabres fan, you want them to still be in contention until that very last game, because then you still have a chance, still have hope, and then maybe then if you officially get eliminated, then maybe if it's like a game or two, then maybe you can send them down. But I think you still need to give Levi the reps and the experience before you send him down for a playoff push. But I think you're good either way, Gino.
I think you may have kind of changed my opinion. I'm admitting this on the air, where I was like, look, from a business standpoint, get to the second seed. You want the home ice. Get to the first seed. But as the first seed, you got to play the hot team, coming off a playing round. And after the rest there, I think rest in hockey, you think, oh, that's a really good thing. And we talked about that with Seth Appert. Well, when you're kind of sitting around for over a week and you're waiting for the playing round, maybe that's not such a good thing. So I think the 2 seed, that's what I would sign up for. Give me the 2 seed, home ice against Cleveland. But what you were saying is no, they showed you they can win in Cleveland. They showed you they can win in
I don't think it matters if they finish 2 or 3 or even 1. The way Seth has his team positioned right now and the way they're playing, that they could play anybody, and I think they'd come out on top. I just think he has them so well prepared where no moment is too big for them, and the players fit the system. They know up and out. They had that great run last year. The last 2 years, basically. So they've been here before. They're ready for this. They just need to get into the tournament to officially start before they go on a run.
Let's take a break here. We will have some of the NFL headlines from today as the Chiefs made a signing, which I'm like, okay. After hearing when I saw, they're bringing in J.K. Dobbins, And they didn't sign J.K. Dobbins. Maybe they will at some point, but to my knowledge, he's still out there. We'll get to some of and also the Rashee Rice story is, not great. We will talk about that, and we have time for your interaction. A couple ways you can do this. The best ways. You can call us. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. You can write to us on X. We'll get to some of that in a minute. Our handle, The Fan Rochester. My name is Gene Battaglia. Danger at the most wonderful place on earth. The Dandalorian here as well. The Flower City, we love it, and we'll talk more next.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with...
Still executing when you need to. And that's what our focus is 99.9% on.
Tom Granado, as we'll have Sabres hockey tonight, and as Dandalorian has pointed out, they're still alive. You can write to us on X or Twitter, as Dan, again, refuses to update his app. You're going to be the last guy in the country that does this. Yeah.
Good.
Our buddy Brian from East Hilton. Oh, by the way, there's no such town as East Hilton. You're either in
Are you
Hilton,
sure, Gino?
I'm absolutely sure.
Okay.
I'm absolutely sure. You're North Greece. You could be East Hilton, whatever. Brian running in caps. Get Levi back in Rochester. A playoff run is better for the growth than going down the USS Firefire circling the toilet. The at Buffalo Sabres missing the playoffs. It's a tradition like no other. Well, yeah, the Sabres have the longest current streak, as you know, dating back to 2011. It's wild to think that my son has never seen a Sabre playoff game. It's just...
That's sad.
I mean, it really is. And I thought this was going to be the year. And, Brian, you're absolutely right because, on the standpoint of getting Levi back to Rochester, it's like... Could you mean like the Amherst could do everything right, but it's going to be a big load for Tokarski here coming up here in these next few weeks. So we'll see if he's up for the challenge. But once you get Levi back for the postseason,
I think he'll be all right.
Then we'll be A-okay. Did you know there's an Art Modell law?
I did not.
There is legitimately an Art Modell law. So Art Modell, just the cliff notes here. Like, many people think that he blindsided Cleveland. You know, there's been a lot written about it, and it was shocking at the time. Like, wait a second, the Cleveland Browns are moving to Baltimore? How is that even like, well, there has been a law, and they call it the Art Modell law, prevents teams that receive taxpayer money from playing most of their home games in a location other than the home stadium unless the mayor and the city council approve of the move or the team gives advance notice 6 months of the intent to move, along with an opportunity for a local buyer to purchase the team. So why am I bringing this up today? Well, maybe we got to get a Cleveland guest on. Like we talked to Spencer German, he's a Rochester native, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, that... There's negotiations right now for a new stadium in Cleveland. Like at the top of the list, it's the stadium in Chicago. And they've gone from the, hey, we're going to build out here in the suburbs of Arlington Park to, well, maybe we're going to go downtown in Chicago. And, okay, and it might be a dome. And to me, and again, I'm not the Bears fan on the show, it would just feel wrong that the Chicago Bears would be playing in a dome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you can't put the Green Bay Packers in a dome. You shouldn't put the Chicago Bears in a dome. But you know why they do it, right? You got to make it. If you're going to build something like that, you need it for more dates. And it goes back to the Buffalo Bills argument. Oh, we should have a dome for the comfort of the. Well, you're not going to have snow on your seat like you did for the Steeler playoff game because there's going to be something covering you up. Number two, you build the dome, you're still not getting the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Frozen Four and you didn't go.
Yep.
So you're not getting additional events that you think you would be in Western New York. Now Chicago, could you take an extra thing from Indy or any of those cities that are in the normal rotation? I get that. And now you have Nashville. Okay, so Nashville, that's a touristy city. They're building a dome. And the idea that, boy, I feel sorry for Browns fans from this standpoint. You went from one owner that we all vilified for good reason, Art Modell. And anybody that says, well, he had to move the team, he could have sold the team.
Mm-hmm.
He could have sold the team. He didn't. He moved it to Baltimore. I guess it's fine today, but the idea that you now have the Haslams.
You'll have to ask Tim tomorrow what he thinks about this.
Well, I think so. Tim Schneider will be in tomorrow, Mr. Brown's fan, here on the show. The Chiefs today, I saw this note. They were bringing in J.K. Dobbins from the Ravens. I'm like, I always liked Dobbins. He wasn't healthy, but when he was healthy for the Ravens, thinking, boy, that would be kind of a sneaky guy you could kind of stash, and all of a sudden, boom, in December, he's healthy. Now, to my knowledge, J.K. Dobbins is still sitting out there, but the Chiefs are bringing back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to which I would say, great. 2 thumbs up. Knock yourself out.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Dan. No, I'm saying it from a Bill standpoint. That doesn't scare me. Shouldn't just get what? Why? For what? What's the reason behind that?
Maybe he's cheaper.
Yeah, that could be
more familiar with the system.
More familiar, yeah. Another player that I thought the Chiefs would get more in return for L'Jarius Sneed because they put the tag on him and then trade him, but only for the 2 picks. But they would have gotten back those 2 picks in terms of compensatory picks. So why make the move to Tennessee now unless you want to do right by the player? That's always the disclaimer. Hey, we want to do right by this player. Go now, do your thing. The idea that his health is still a question mark, that he has knee issues. He did his first press conference down in Tennessee, and his quote, "Ain't nothing wrong with my knee. It's fine. I played the whole season." Sure, I guess anytime that you have a corner on his second contract, that's always like a risky investment, right? For Tre'Davious White, it's unfortunate the timing of that because Tre'Davious White, when the Bills paid him that money, you could make the argument he was the best corner in the game. He really was. And it was the weird, wonky 2020 season where we even going to have, a full schedule, and we ended up having a full schedule, and that was in August. And does Tre'Davious White hold out? Does he want the money? And I think the Bills did right at the time. We didn't know they would get hurt on Thanksgiving night, and since that point, he hasn't been right. We talked to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and he said that felt about right. 1 year. Kind of a prove-it deal for Tre'Davious White. He ends up with the Rams, as you know. And look, and Matt brought this up last week before the signing. He sees a scenario where Tre'Davious White, so respected by the Bills coaching staff and Bills fan base, you see players all the time go somewhere, make their money somewhere else, but you know what? I'm going to come back and help you in the end. And could you see Tre'Davious White, his final act, coming back to Buffalo? I could see that. To me, go make your money with Kansas City. The corner position for Buffalo, for the most part, it's not the biggest area in need. They're going to have to draft a corner. They're going to have to develop a corner. I don't know if you do that in day 2 in this draft. Certainly not day 1. Although I did see one mock that had the Bills taking a corner. I'm like, no, not this year. You have Christian Benford. How good is Christian Benford? Yeah, where do you see this year?
Could you trade for a corner? I know, Matt mentioned, when White's cap comes off the books, you have more money. Maybe you could, if you have all these picks, maybe you could trade
you could
for an established veteran corner or a young corner.
Yeah, you could do that just a little bit, or you just wait until the trade deadline, which they did last year with Rasul Douglas. Which, explain to me, Packer fan, why you got rid of Rasul Douglas for what was only a pick swap. Now, granted, when the Bills don't have a 3rd-round pick, many people will be like, oh, that should have been our compensatory pick. Okay, well, you got a 4th-rounder for compensatory. But also, that was your 3rd-round pick that ended up being a 5th. So that's why it's going to be, unless the Bills move back in round 1 or 2 and pick up an extra pick, it's going to be a quick Friday night. It's going to be just the one pick, and then I say this every year, Dan, when the draft comes around, you know what? It's such a time killer. Let me just be productive. Let me go do something else, go work out, and I'll watch who everybody took. Or especially on a Saturday, if you get nice weather, I need to do yard work. I need to get out there. I need to do this and that and every other thing. And then what do? I like a sloth. I sit my butt down on the couch and I just, I'll watch until the next break. And they just hook me. They hook me. They know exactly. We got happy hour coming up, where we have the quote from Rebecca Lobo. We have this development for the Blue Cross Arena and what does this mean for the future of our town? I have thoughts on that. If I'm missing an angle on that, if you think, hey, I want to add something to the conversation, that's what's great about our format here. I don't want to be just yap. You get input, like your thoughts here on Iowa, your thoughts on the Bagulas not running the arena anymore. Is that a good thing for our town, a bad thing for our town? It's kind of an open-ended question. 866-4326 is our phone number, 866-4FAN. Gene Battaglia with you, Danger, back on Monday here on the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Revenge is a dish that's served cold, and it's on the menu for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And an all-time game last night, and it delivered. It was spectacular.
The real game was Lobo v. Albany.
UConn defeated USC 80-73 to join the Final Four fray.
So you have Iowa against UConn national semifinal.
And the NFL draft is right around the corner.
The Buffalo Bills select.
I am all in on a wide receiver for the first round. And I'm all in on possibly trading up to get a wide receiver.
Mike Danger, Gene Battaglia.
Ronel Blanco tossed a no-hitter in Houston.
The New York Yankees have started the season 5-0 for the first time since 1992. The evil empire will fully return in 2024.
Is it good or bad that I already hate baseball?
Let's go, Mets.
Matt Perino. Seth Appert with the state of the team.
Hey there, Sabres fans.
Bonjour, Jeff.
Jeff Skinner's 1,000th happens tonight here at KeyBank Center as they are taking on the Capitals.
He told me he's going to play 1,000 more games. I believe that.
Thank you for listening to the show. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, happy hour here on this Tuesday. Bummed that the Red Wings will not be playing today, but Sunday looks pretty nice. And so, if you're somebody that can wait till the weekend, I'm sure that maybe you can enjoy that. Monday looks really nice, too, for the Eclipse. And here's our plan in the sports bar because I don't know if you heard, we might be tough getting around town that day, so we decided here in the sports bar, you know what, because we like going out to places like Three Heads, we like going out to places like the Tap Room at Bill Gray's and engaging with you. That's probably a day where everybody's going to be doing things with friends and family. Didn't feel right, so we're just going to do the broadcast from our roof of our station. Our studios, it's 6 stories, high falls, and we'll just kind of look up in the sky. And we understand that, a lot of people listening and watching out of town that, we can kind of live vicariously. So it's going to be cool that we're going to be kind of, at the center of the globe there that day with the eclipse happening. And I turned in Al Michaels there? I want to talk about women's basketball. And it was a great game last night. But here's an indicator that there's a long, long way to go. The website Awful Announcing did a study. Did you see this, Dan?
I have not seen this.
Okay, let me share this with you. So Awful Announcing, they kind of turn the camera around on the sports media business, which, and they'll point out stuff. Sometimes they'll put up clips. And they did just kind of a tracker last week. So this would have been last week from Monday to Friday. And they went through the various networks, and the worst offender was FS1. By offender, I'm meaning, all right, times that a Dallas Cowboy keyword was named, whether it be Dak Prescott, Jerry Jones, the Cowboys, versus how many times an Iowa basketball keyword, and really you only have one, Caitlin Clark. You think that would be like 50-50 in the offseason? Do you think it would be more?
I think it's always 24/7 Dallas Cowboys, honestly.
Would this surprise you? The number of keywords that were mentioned on that network for the Dallas Cowboys last week, 298.
Okay.
For Iowa women's basketball, 6.
Really?
298 to 6. Now, last Monday, I kind of remember, hey, Iowa, they snuck by. Who was it? West Virginia, I think it was, and okay, they're out of the Sweet 16 and they're on to the Elite 8. And gosh, they got it done. But that just tells me, hey, there's a long, long way to go here for women's basketball. Now, we should also point out that it was last week where Jerry Jones kind of laid down the law and, I'm not giving any, we learned, wait a second, oh, my gosh, if he wants to, you could have Dak Prescott, you could have, CeeDee Lamb, all these players could all be out. So when Jerry Jones was saying, hey, we're all in, I think we all interpreted it like, oh, he's going to go spending and mortgage the future. And no, you want your money here. We're going to be all in. So it's an interesting experiment they're doing down in Dallas. But I thought that was just kind of interesting that, the NFL still moves the needle here. That's what it is in the end. And for us, it's the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, evergreen in any town for the Cowboys here. unpopular take in our town, because I think the take in our town would be, hey, we're Rochesterians and we're going to stick up for another upstate town. We don't like calling ourselves upstate. We like to say Western New York here. But the fact that Caitlin Clark last night, they're talking about this on the broadcast, and the story was she's telling her brother, go out and do something. This was Ryan Rucco with Rebecca Lobo on the broadcast last night.
Well, she told us they've been reaching out to me, and I've told them, just go find something to do in Albany. I'm staying in my room and just waiting for the game.
And by the way, good luck finding something to do in Albany.
Can you imagine if, like, when we had the PGA Championship in town, if somebody had said that? We wouldn't have taken too kindly to it. But let's be honest. Like, you as a Rochesterian should be able to rattle off. You got somebody from out of town, they have kids, we're going to go to the Strong. Oh my gosh, this is great here. Hey, you got a college buddy you haven't seen around. You know what? We got this brewery with a waterfall. Or we got this really cool place, Three Heads. Or you should be able to rattle things off. Hey, you like history? Let's go to the Eastman. There are things that are unique to our town. You may not like the Jazz Fest. Lots of people do, and it brings a lot of people in town. Mm-hmm. Now, if I say Buffalo, okay, well, tell me, what would you do if you had a day off in Buffalo? Well, gosh, they have the Knox Albright Museum. They have architecture everywhere. They have Chippewa. Okay, what would you do in Syracuse? Oh, my gosh, the Armory after you go to an Orange game, or maybe you go down the Skinny Alley. What do you do in Albany? Dan, I opened up our conversation yesterday with Tim Schneider with that before Rebecca Lobo happened. I had this like sixth sense. Tim, my first question is, what do you do in Albany during your downtime? What is the scene there? Honestly, I'd never been around Albany.
Right now, they've got us at a hotel. It's a brand new hotel in about a block from the arena. So we went and grabbed some food earlier, took a little lap around the arena again. We just happened to run into Caitlin Clark, of all people, so she is well secured, but they got off the bus as we were coming out of our diner, and the Iowa team looks like they are ready to go.
All right, so that's Tim being the professional he is. And by the way, he will be in tomorrow. He's not taking my bait there. Like, I'm like, what do you do there? And like, I honestly, and I'm asking that question, and what I got out of that was, okay, let me pivot off of that, and I ate at a diner. Now, I'm asking that. If Rebecca Lobo had just said that last night, I have no idea what to do in town. That's an Albany problem. That is their visitors association. That's whoever the leadership there is. You're not doing your job. You have the rare sporting event where the country you're inviting in. When was the last time Albany had that big a sporting event? When will they ever have a sporting event like that again? For us, we're used to it in our town because when we do golf, we do it really right. And I got to kind of experience this. It wasn't meant for me, but for every media person that goes through, hey, here's some places, here's some coupon, here's things you can check out. You get hit to like, okay, I got it. But you're feeling welcome. You're feeling welcome. You're like, hey, it's a big deal. Was there any of that whatsoever in Albany? The answer is no. In fact, last night, I don't know the exact time, whether it was 11 or 11:30, but security kicking out the media after the game, saying, everybody leave. Well, wait a second. We got to file the reports. We got to do. No. So you have reporters saying, they don't know what they're doing here in Albany. So when you go home tonight and you're saying, man, what Rebecca Lobo did to Albany, I just turn around and it's like, what do you do in Albany? And the fact that the mayor came out, well, we have museums and we have nice restaurants. Oh, my gosh. Honey, let's get in the car because they have restaurants in Albany. We don't have restaurants in Rochester. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but did Rebecca Lobo actually go, like, the way she kind of chuckled? All she had to say was, I have no idea what to do here in this town. But she went for the laugh, and she got pushed back. Now, where I'm going to kind of wave my finger at Rebecca Lobo was then she goes to social media and says, no, there's no shade. Rebecca, You're smart enough to know if you're going to say something like that. You can't gaslight us on that. That was, that's the definition of shade on the town there. So what I liked about that last night, where we're having some fun with the Rebecca Lobo comment, the basketball itself, it was great.
Yep.
It was great. And I'm watching this, and I'm not, gender and race, and none of that's entering my mind.
No.
Some people from the outside are making it. I'm like, no, this is just great basketball in the first half. And then Caitlin Clark does what Caitlin Clark does. And I would just say to Kim Mulkey, did you ever thought to take, Van Lille off of, like, Caitlin Clark?
I don't think it really mattered.
No, like, at that point, like, I guess maybe, it doesn't matter who's guarding her, but she was unconscious. This is where Dan gets to hit our favorite soundbite in the sports bar, folks. Caitlin Clark had 9 3-pointers last night.
9 times.
41 points overall. And how difficult is that when you are a player like that, where the whole country sports landscape is watching? In fact, now you're crossing into other areas. If you look, and maybe you're listening and your significant other doesn't like sports, but you have a daughter. The daughter should be watching Caitlin Clark. Like, that is something like, this is special what she's doing out there. I'm putting her on the level, and you could say you're exaggerating, Gene. I'm like, no. When Tiger Woods was at his peak, you stopped and you watched. When Michael Jordan was winning championships, you stopped and you watched. When LeBron went back to Cleveland, you stopped and you watched. Like, some are comparing her to the Steph Curry. Yeah, like Steph Curry. Like, you're talking about athletes that are excellent, and we gravitate to those athletes. We root for excellence. Like, nobody cares about Iowa basketball prior to Caitlin Clark, but now the whole country is seemingly behind Iowa. And here's the kicker. The kicker is this, Danny. They're not the best team in women's basketball right now. That's South Carolina. South Carolina, what are they, 36-0? Yeah. That is going to set up for a great final. Oh, wait, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. You got Gino Auriemma. They're still doing this at how many years? And like, okay, so you got to get past Kim Mulkey, and then you got to get past Gino Auriemma, and then you got to get past Dawn Staley and her undefeated team, because yes, they'll take care of NC State. NC State men, I give them a shot. NC State women, no. Now, good luck going up against South Carolina. Honestly, that is going to be compelling. And then when we get to that on Sunday, I predict you'll have the biggest number ever for a women's sporting event. Yeah. I think that is going to be the case. And the fact that you have Cleveland getting overrun by fans right now, they're willing to pay top dollar. People are willing. If something is great, you're willing to pay for it. But Albany, I don't think you get another shot. I think that was your one shot, and the sport has grown past you. When you bid on this like 3 years ago, great. Now every city's going to want in on women's basketball, because after Caitlin Clark, there will be other personalities. We are now familiar with some of the personalities. I don't think Kim Mulkey's going anywhere. Gino will probably be doing this for another 10 years, I would think. And certainly they'll probably reload after Paige Bruckers. But it's not out of context. Like, women's basketball at the collegiate level is interesting now. Like, how does this look in June when we get to the WNBA season? Confession. I have never watched a WNBA game. It's baseball season, or I like to go outside. And when I'm outside and maybe I want to relax rather than turn a game on, I will read up on fantasy football. How do they pull us in? How are they going to market Caitlin Clark when she makes that? Because guess what I'm going to do? When they better put her on opening night. There's going to be a lot of pressure on her. Mentioned this earlier in the show. At least Kim Mulkey has a sense of humor where she's going through the handshake line at the end, and she says to Caitlin Clark, "I'm glad you're leaving." Which she could have come back for a 5th year. She did not. The other story today, and it was first reported by Rachel Hopmeyer. Others have kind of followed up on this. And just the facts, and then I'll tell you what I think this means. The facts are this, that the city of Rochester's put out a request for proposal for somebody to run the Blue Cross Arena. Like doing the Scooby-Doo thing. Like, what? After all that we went through, like we said, hey, it makes sense to align everything with the Pagulas. We're like, no, not us. Nope, let somebody else do it. So what, do you bring back Jeff Calkins? Like, do you bring it? Like, okay, so that's the story today. The story is also this. It's not the Amerks that run the arena, technically. It's not the Nighthawks that run the arena. It's Rochester Arena LLC, which is a Pagula-owned business. Mm-hmm. What we've learned here over the past year is as soon as Pagula Sports and Entertainment dissolved, that was a surprise. Like, okay, what does this mean? And people, oh my gosh, they're going to sell the Sabres. No, I don't think that's what it means. In fact, I could tell you, Pete Gwelly doesn't take that job and come back to his hometown if they're going to sell the Sabres. What I think it means is this, and maybe my analogy is a little off here. If you've got a better one, write to me on Twitter, The Fan Rochester. See, I said Twitter. Or you can give me a call. But I'll use the Rochester analogy of Wegmans. They own Chase Pickin. Growing up, Chase Pickin was the store. Had all these locations, okay? I went to the one on Mount Reed Boulevard, and we had one, like, everybody had a Chase Pickin. And then one day, we're closing them all down. I'm like, why? Well, they were making money, but not the money that you would want. And the fact that, hey, we're putting this effort into this, but let's focus all our efforts into this grocery store that people actually kind of love, and let's expand it. And then, all down the Eastern Seaboard. Like, Wegmans, in case you didn't know, if you're new to town, they actually had a home improvement chain. It was like the local hometown hardware store. So is that kind of the analogy here, where running the arena, sure, you're making a little bit of money, but when it comes to your operations staff, your sales staff, all these other things, you just be better off served. You know what? We're making some money off this. Put it out there. Let the city have somebody else come in and do this. Now, the Amerks and Nighthawks provided us a statement. In the statement, say they're considered with the city of Rochester. They mentioned conversations they will continue. That word always makes me nervous. I think whenever you put conversations out there, that's always like a loser word in a locker room. Like, oh yeah, we have conversations. If you're winning, you're not having conversations. You're winning. If you're losing and you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing, then you have conversations. If the deal is done, deal done. All right. If the deal is not done, you're having conversations. So the fact that that word is in the release, and I could be reading way too deep into that, mind you. But the way this works is the Amerks and the Nighthawks negotiate with the city says yes. And what the city told us years ago on this very show, they are tenants. The Pagulas are tenants. The Amerks are tenants in the city's home. And my dream, circa 2017, 2018, that when the Pagulas would come in, this would spark development in downtown. Look what they did with the Harbor Center. Could we get look what they did with 716 at the time, and look, could we get more of this downtown and make it more of a, and none of that happened. To the fact that even still under the Pagula Run Arena, they put out the RFP themselves for a restaurant, and they got 0 bids. 0 bids. Because underneath, facing the riverside, there's a lot of space over there. You could, redo it and have, like a sports bar restaurant, a place that, okay, you go to the dinosaur, but what about a second option? What about going, what about, I've always, had this dream of, hey, go to the Amerk game, and, hey, you know what? The game is done. Let's sit down and watch the NCAA tournament while we're here. Could we do that in our downtown? Because you know what? A lot of downtowns do. Maybe not in Albany, as we but in our town. None of that happened. None of it. So for, You can't even say PSE anymore because that doesn't even exist. Things are siloed. Here's going to be another reason why I say don't worry, okay? And that is my faith in Pete Gawelli.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Gawelli didn't take this job, didn't leave being the COO of the New York Football Giants. Aquinas grad running the New York Giants. He took the job in his hometown area of Western New York. Not to say, you know what, the Amerks and Nighthawks aren't making enough money. See ya. No, that's not it at all. It's not it at all. But someday I'll ask Pete about like the logic behind this. And maybe there's an opportunity here. Meaning, could you get more concerts? Like if there's an outside firm, they want to book events that they can make money. Maybe they get more concerts downtown the Blue Cross Arena. Maybe there's another minor league team in a sport we don't know. Like, could you bring? Is there a market for that? And I would contest, no. With streaming and everything else, and the fact that hey, I can watch pretty much any game anywhere. The idea that watching indoor football in June is just not appealing in our town. Like, are there other events you could bring in? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this. Like, once upon a time, we had an NBA exhibition game in town. Like, we had things like that. So can we have little one-offs? So that's something just to kind of monitor. Now, the timeline this out, the Amerks and Nighthawks are still going to run the Blue Cross Arena until April of 2025. Technically, let me get that straight. It's not the Amerks and Nighthawks. It's Amerks Arena LLC. Rochester Arena LLC. I'll get it right on the third time. So, yeah. It's that is something that certainly we'll keep an eye on. And when Danger comes back on Monday, we're like, oh, by the way, they're not going to run the arena. You can write to us on X. Jack, who is a real name, our friend Jack, writing in. After 33 years in the newspaper business, I traveled a lot. I can tell you the best places to hit up in the capital region. In Albany, it's the City Beer Hall in Troy. It's Brown's Pub Brewing Company in Glens Falls and Davidson Brothers Brew Pub. Now, see, I have been to Troy just for RPI. It was a quick in and out. Look kind of cute there, but like that's nowhere near the arena. So I could see that if Rebecca Lobo's just kind of going in for one night, she's not. Is anybody saying go up to Troy? Is anybody saying go up to Saratoga Springs? Maybe that's the answer. I've heard nice things about that. Peter running in. Fun fact, the Albany AHL team used to be called the River Rats. Peter, we're well aware of this, buddy. Used to play in that arena, too. You said you've never been to that arena.
No.
No need to.
I remember the River Rats, but I've never been.
You also had, see if Peter knows this, you had two teams. And I don't know where the other one played, the CDI Islanders. The Capital, CDI, that was Capital District Islanders were another AHL team. Boy, the recesses of my mind are pretty scary if I remember that. Appreciate you writing in, gentlemen, and we'll take more of your calls coming up next. We got a last call coming up. Before that, we'll get the shots here in the sports bar. Oh, before that, Dan, because we were talking about how Vern Lundquist is retiring, 83 years old. That feels right. Today, calling the Milwaukee Brewers home opener. Brewers are up on the Twins, by the way, 3-1 there in the fifth. Bob Uecker, at 90 years old, he's calling a baseball game at 90 years old. He gets a standing ovation. So that was kind of cool. So we'll have more coming up here in shots. The Red Wings, of course, rained out. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It's Battaglia and Drama here on The Fan.
Bills, Sabres, Amherst. Your home for live sports is 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, apologies to my friend Dan DeLorean. I got to figure out a way to go in and change this for everybody watching along online today. Wave to the camera there on YouTube and
hey guys.
Twitch. You are still introduced as Mike Danger.
That's
like the
okay.
graphic there still
I'm
says,
Mike
hey,
Danger.
You're Mike Danger, and
I'm Mike
you
Danger.
lost a little bit of weight. Your hair looks a little better.
Got my readers on.
Yeah, we'll see if he's listening. If I just to say that $430. That's the get-in price for the women's Final Four in Cleveland. In fact, the championship game going for much more than that. I don't know who keeps track of this stuff, but that's got to be a record, I would think, for a women's sporting event in our country. Friday, the semifinals, and usually the way it works, the team with the top seed overall goes first, and they get, the few extra hours of rest. That would be South Carolina. The Gamecocks are 36-0, mowing down opponents, and they get NC State, the Wolfpack, 11.5-point underdogs. It's going to be followed by UConn and Iowa, Rutgers and Clark. Iowa favored by just 2.5, which will be joined by PJ Glasser tomorrow in the Sports Bar. And the amount of money, and I've seen this stat that last night, it was on women's basketball. More people bet on that game than any NBA game, than any NHL game, and as they should. You're just a casual player. You want to, go on your phone and play something. You're going to bet on what you think you know there, and I think that's a little fishy. Just from the fact that I thought the public would be pushing Iowa a little more than the 2.5. That looks too good to be true, right? You want an Iowa South Carolina final. If we get UConn, NC State, I'm like,
Is it maybe it's possible that I think more people would rather see Caitlin Clark, but I think either way, if you do get South Carolina and UConn, I think it's still going to be a compelling matchup, but I think viewers prefer to see Caitlin Clark.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, you want the story like, can she finally lead this team?
Fairy tale ending. She goes off, walks off in the distance. And
like last night, she's just hitting everything. And then finally she got a little greedy, trying a logo 3 and missed it. But last night, I'm like, wow,
it was back and forth. I mean, it lived up to the hype. It had everything you wanted for a rematch, basically.
TNT tonight, doubleheader in the NBA. First game they've had, the first game they have on tonight. That's your top storyline in the league. It's the return of Joel Embiid. Sixers center has been out since January 30th with a meniscus injury. Sixers hosting Oklahoma City, and Thunder are really good this year. They're the top team in the West right now. Philly is 8th in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be followed up on the network by Dallas and Golden State. Other games tonight include the Knicks playing in Miami. The Lakers are up in Toronto. April 1st, and we already had our first no-hitter. Okay, maybe I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not. They're not special anymore. Like, no-hitters are, like, we're just getting to this, like, right now. Like, at the end of the show, like, oh, yeah, there was a no-hitter last night. And it's kind of a neat story. Renaud Blanco, only his 8th game in the majors. At any level.
That's impressive.
In any level.
That's impressive.
This is even more impressive, okay? From the minors up until there, he never gone past 6 in any game, period, as a pro. And they let him go all 9. He was great last night. Never heard of him before last night. Striking out 7. The Astros beating the Jays 10-0. Oh, and Renaud Blanco, and then you read up on him. He's already 30 and just doing this right now. And he had a kid this week. So, really good week for him.
Yeah.
Some fan bases have to feel pretty good right now in baseball. The Yankees off to a 5-0 start. Nestor Cortes taking them out tonight for New York as they're in Arizona. 9:40 Eastern. Last time New York was 5-0, 1992. And for the first time since 1983, the Pittsburgh Pirates are 5-0, and they're actually off today. Major League Baseball baking in an off day just to kind of buffer against bad weather, I suppose. Pittsburgh continue their series in Washington tomorrow night. Haven't talked much about the S's here, the S word here. Should be a nice ceremony in Buffalo tonight, probably prior to the S's game against Washington. Jeff Skinner playing in career game number 1,000. A little neat nugget from our buddy Lance Lysowski of the Buffalo News today. Since 2010... like in terms of even strength goals, Skinner's 6th in the NHL. He's a proven goal scorer, but they did right for Kyle Raposo, but that money makes the contract so difficult to kind of move. So, look, like we mentioned, he's never been to the postseason. And, it's kind of tough. As there is no E next to Buffalo, I guess, in the standings right now. The E standing for eliminated. 7 games to go. 7 points back in the standings. So it's not even worth discussing what would have to happen. But, hey, let's see if the Sabres actually just show up tonight. Let's see how many people go to this game. As Washington right now, they're holding on to one of those last playoff spots. And then for our IT hockey fans here, and I got a little, what would be the word, animated yesterday, a little perturbed. The idea that you had your top playmakers kind of leaving the program. Got this little nugget. So Carter Wilkie decided he went into the portal. Okay. If you say Carter Wilkie's going to turn pro, I wouldn't have been upset. But you say portal, it hits a little differently. And this is like the problem major basketball teams have been dealing with now for a couple of years. Now it's coming home to your local hockey team that, hey, your best player, they need to step up here in the competition, they feel, in order to get noticed. Because Carter Wilkie was planning on turning pro, and guess what happened? He didn't get any offers, so he didn't turn pro. Well, apparently Carter Wilkie is visiting this week North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin.
You brought up North Dakota yesterday as a place.
Well, that's where the rumor about Tommy Scarfoni, North Dakota, and North Dakota being like, okay, what would be one of the few places that would be like, checkbook, here you go, come on in.
Yeah.
And I that's not it. And that's my sense here. That's not it for either of these players. My sense is that really they're just trying to do this to get noticed, which, it just goes back to the league that the Tigers are in. That I hope this is a one-year thing. I hope it's not an annual thing where here's the best players and we want to go pro, we want to get drafted, and we need to go play with a blue-chip program. Now, visiting those schools doesn't mean he's getting an offer. It could just be like, yeah, come on, we'll talk to you. Mm-hmm. So, but, that you wish those players well. We have time for calls. You want to talk about the Iowa game? You want to talk about Rebecca Lobo? You want to talk about the Bills here? Like, we had a great conversation today with Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and he's starting, I detect he's coming around in my direction where I feel like a lot of Bills Twitter or X or whatever we want to call it is wide receiver. Our buddy Jeremy White driving the wide receiver train. And I feel that's not going to happen. And I would make the argument that your pass rush doesn't have any depth. Your secondary doesn't have any depth at safety. You could fortify that offensive line. There are other areas this team should look. Matt Perino says, keep an open mind when it comes to the Buffalo Bills in round 1. We can review that as well. Anything you want to talk about? It's called Last Call for a reason. Last call in the sports bar. Get it? Last call. Anyhow, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Battaglia and Drummy today here on The Fan.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
So that's calling the Sports Bar, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Fun show today. We had Seth Appert on the 4 o'clock hour, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, in the Shout podcast in 3 o'clock hour. And if you want to sneak in with any of your takes that have been rattling around in your mind, by all means, give us a call, or you can write to us on X, or handle The Fan Rochester. I believe that if you are going to wave a finger at an athlete and you've done something dumb similarly, that you kind of got to confess, and I have to confess. And I think I mentioned this once. And I'm not proud of this, but when I was in my early 20s, went on vacation to California. And my buddy Dennis and I, we're not in like fancy California. We're like in Josh Allen, California. We're like in, I remember
Fireball.
Yeah, I don't know the town, but like I remember garlic fields and the overpowering, and damn, when I tell you, there's nobody around. There's nobody around. And we get the bright idea, let's see how fast this thing can go. And when I tell you, I was in a car that went 120 miles an hour. Yeah, I did that when I was young, and don't do that, because now I look back and like, boy, how stupid was I? Because one little misstep, hey, I'm not here today. Yeah. Number two, hey, if there's just Smokey at the side, bam, it's not getting a ticket, that's jail. So that's dumb. Okay, so I have to kind of confess that when you're in your early 20s, we've all done dumb things. That was done a few things, and that was dumb. Apparently, Rashee Rice was doing the same sort of thing, but this wasn't in, nowhere, California, where nobody was around. And by the way, I wasn't a high-profile NFL player with millions, okay? The dashboard video on this, the dashboard cam, is damning. If you're not familiar with the story, there were a Lamborghini and a Corvette that are racing in Dallas, in the Metroplex. And this happened early Saturday evening, 6:20. But these two racing cars going at these high speeds caused this 6-car pileup. And then you watch this pileup, it's like, wow, somebody get killed? Did somebody get really hurt? The answer is no, thankfully. Okay, they're all okay. But you would think, human decency, you would say, you would pull over. You would do the right thing. You would help them out, not leave the scene of an accident. And that's also part of this that's unsettling. You made a mistake, and now you're just kind of doubling down on it. So then when I think we woke up, what morning was it, and you're seeing, hey, police are searching for Rashee Rice. Like, wait a second, what is this about? So which car was he driving? Well, he's liable for both, apparently. Let me explain. Dallas police believe he was the one driving the Chevrolet Corvette. However, he apparently rented out the Lamborghini too. And the company, the Classic Lifestyle, that's the name of the company. I think you and I, we heard the story, it's like we had a company like this in Rochester. I don't know if they still exist. You could rent. I don't have money to go blow out of $300, $400 a day just to drive around a Lamborghini. If you have that disposable income, 2 thumbs up. I'm glad you do. But but in Dallas, and it makes it tough in Rochester because I don't think today's a day you want to rent a car like that. But in Dallas, where the weather's great, pretty much year round, you can afford to do that. And you're renting out the Lamborghini, and because when you rent out the Lamborghini, you're saying, yes, I will be the only one driving. Sign here, Mr. Rashee Rice. Sign. So where does the NFL kind of go from here? It's going to be kind of an interesting, so far nobody's saying anything that, is this just kind of an internal thing that the Chiefs are going to be left to deal with? Does Roger Goodell step in? Because if there were injuries, if there's something criminal, you would think Roger Goodell would step in. Or does just Rashee Rice write everybody one big giant check?
Yeah,
That to me seems like all right, let's make this right, and here's a little more. And then, and granted, he's like not on his big time contract. How does this apply to the Buffalo Bills? Well, the Chiefs always apply to the Buffalo Bills. How does this apply to the Buffalo Bills? Well, because the Bills' needs here, we can debate this. If you say the number one need on this team is wide receiver, I'm not going to argue with you. The Bills right now pick at 28. By winning the Super Bowl, the Chiefs pick at 32. So if you are one to say, you could pick a wide receiver at 28, there's a danger the Chiefs could do a McDuffie. We're joined by Matt Perino. It's like, is that true? He's like, yeah, I've heard the same thing. Like, pretty much the Chiefs got the Bills on that with McDuffie. And could the Chiefs do that again, knowing that before any of this happened, playmakers, boom, we need to get another receiver in there, like for Patrick Mahomes. Yes, that was certainly a need for Kansas City. But now it's like, do you trust somebody like this that's making poor judgments? And again, Dan, if I was driving a Lamborghini in Central California when I was 23, maybe I don't know. I got to admit, I did something stupid too. But this is an NFL player who should know better. You have all your eyes on you. So, and again, he ran away from the scene of the crime, allegedly. Tomorrow on the show, we will talk to PJ Glasser. So we'll talk about both Final Fours. The men's Final Four, women's Final Four. We'll talk some baseball as well with our good buddy PJ Glasser. Tim Schneider, resident Browns fan, will be in the role of Dan Drummey tomorrow. Dan, you will be back on Thursday.
I'll be here.
So I appreciate you working the double time here.
Of course.
And tonight, 7 o'clock for Sabres hockey. But listen anyways. Here on the Fan Rochester. Have a good night, man.
It's that time again.